how do you know if you're overtraining for SFAS? So the same overtraining symptoms for any sort of training would be similar to SFAS prep. I would say it's a little bit more common amongst those prepping for SFAS just because the personality of somebody who would be pursuing this goal is also the personality of someone who tends to overdo things in life. Type A personality individuals, hard chargers, people who work hard, go home, are typically guys who pursue SF. And they're also people who typically tend to overtrain, or in this case, we'll just consider it overtraining, but not necessarily overtraining syndrome, but doing more training than what you can recover from, or more training than what is beneficial for you. There's a true overtraining syndrome that's very, 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 very difficult to reach. Most people will never be there. You've got to be an endurance athlete and you have to be running really, really, really high mileages, or typically runners are the only ones who get like true overtraining syndrome. Gymnasts can get it as well. Gymnasts have some crazy training regimens, wrestlers, I guess, too. But that being said, even though you're not getting overtraining syndrome, which takes months and months to recover from, some people never fully recover from overtraining syndrome. It also takes months and months to get into, blah, 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 all those things. So we won't talk about that. We'll just talk about signs that you're overdoing it. And you probably need to take a deload, or a few days off, or a week off, or change something in your program. Most likely a combination of those things. So number one, probably the fastest thing to creep in, the first thing that at least I see is I start losing motivation to train. I start losing the desire to really go to the gym, and it starts feeling more like a chore. This only works if you're usually motivated to train. If you're typically not motivated and you're also not motivated, you don't really have to worry about overtraining because you need to probably train more. But in this case, probably for someone prepping for SFAS, usually you're motivated to train, and that'll be one of the first things that you might notice. It's different for everyone, but that's a pretty clear sign. It's not just that. Like, there's a bunch of other symptoms I'll get into here in a second, but that is a pretty good one. Another thing you might notice is that you are not sleeping as well. What this typically looks like, and again, this is different for everyone, but so when I say most of these things, it's assuming that you usually are doing these things or feeling these things, or these usually apply to you, but they start to not apply to you. So just getting that out of the way. But you might start seeing some sort of sleep disturbance, whether it's commonly it is something like you are either trying to go to sleep and you're super tired physically, but your brain just won't shut off and you have racing thoughts and you are basically tired but wired. That is kind of a symptom for it. Also, another possibility is as soon as you hit your head hits the pillow, you fall asleep, but you wake up around the middle of the night or early in the morning and again, thoughts are racing and you can't go back to sleep and you're just awake, or you're just super hot. Sometimes this might be combined with some night sweats or something like that. So sleep disturbances, another one. Or maybe you go to sleep and you just wake up and you don't feel rested, or your sleep numbers are terrible. If you wear a sleep tracker or something like that, you maybe spent 9 hours in bed, but you got barely any deep sleep, barely any REM sleep, and you don't feel well rested. Joint pain is going to be an inherent byproduct of SFAS prep. That's just how it is. If your joints are never achy, then you're probably not really training for SFAS properly. It's just how it is. Like, it's not a very longevity friendly way to train, which is why you should only do it when you're going to SFAS. Lots of rucking, lots of running. Your joints are going to ache a little bit, and sometimes they might hurt a little bit. But if they are progressively getting worse, or if they are just staying the same and not getting any better, and you continue to train, that could be a movement quality thing. It could be something different, but it also could be a sign and symptom of overtraining. Soreness. Usually when you have been training for a while and you've been doing similar things, which hopefully when you're doing any sort of training, you do at least somewhat similar things each week. You can change small things up, but it should be relatively similar. And therefore, because of the repeated bout effect, you might be sore when you first start a training block, but that soreness should go away and decrease over time. Week after week after week, you should get less sore, even though you are probably cranking up the intensity a little bit, because you are just your body's adapting to it and you're getting used to it. But if you are overdoing it, you might notice that you're sore for longer all of a sudden. Maybe you're 8 weeks in, you've been feeling great, and you notice you're starting to get a little bit more sore and a little bit more sore, or whatever it may be. That's another sign. A really clear one is either you stop improving, you stop making progress. And I'm not talking about just like a single workout. I'm not even talking about a week of workouts, but I mean like you are noticeably either plateaued or you start going backwards. If you start going backwards, and this is a trend, not just a single session. Some sessions are going to be better than others. That's just how it works, which a lot of people need to remember. But say you have 3 consecutive sessions where you just are slower or weaker or whatever in the same type of training, then that's probably an indication that you're overdoing it a little bit. Changes in appetite is another one. Oftentimes this is a decreased appetite. It could be an increased appetite, but usually it's decreased. Then you have symptoms throughout the day. Brain fog. You struggle to concentrate on things. You struggle to focus on things. You may forget things. You may be very lethargic and just not feeling great throughout the day for your cognitive tasks. You may be very forgetful and just general not very good cognition. Mood disturbances. Maybe you're a little bit more moody than usual. Maybe you can't regulate your emotions as well as you normally can. And that is more signs. Objective signs would be something like several days in a row of higher resting heart rate, not just one day, but several days in a row trending higher resting heart rate, or lower HRV, or both. Oftentimes those are kind of a combination. They come with one another. That just indicates that you're more stressed than what you're recovering from, and you probably need to dial it back. Body temperature. Your body temperature could get cooler, and this could be as simple as eating more food. That could be an easy fix for that one, but also it can be a sign that you're overdoing everything, and you just eating more food is not the answer. You actually need to like change some stuff, whether it's dial stuff back or take a deload. Generally speaking, if you're overdoing it, which a lot of people will eventually at some point be slightly overdoing it, overreaching, and overreaching is intentional. And when you overreach intentionally, push a little bit harder than what you can recover from, and then taper or take a deload intentionally, and then that fatigue goes away and those fitness gains kind of show themselves, that's fine. That's actually part of a good selection prep regimen. But if you do that for too long and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, then you're probably not helping yourself, and eventually you're going to need to do something. Some people literally don't even need to take a deload. They just need to get their shit together outside the gym and start eating more, hydrating better, start sleeping better, start managing their stress better, whatever it may be. And they will take care of whatever's going on, whatever signs and symptoms of their overtraining is. Some people need to change a lot of things in their program. They probably need to take a deload, or I usually, in this case, if I see someone with symptoms like this, I'll have them take 4 or 5, sometimes an entire week off. Just don't train. Don't think about training, and we'll get back to it. The way I prep my guys, I'm not going to lead them into overtraining where they need like a week off or they need to completely revamp their entire program, because I'm in charge of their training program. But some people, if they're doing their own programming or whatever it may be, they might have just way, way, way too much. So they probably need to take a deload or a few days off and then change a bunch of things, drop a bunch of volume. I made a full episode on unfucking your SFAS prep program. I believe it's episode 115. You can go listen to that, and this should help you out just to see, because sometimes I can look at someone's program and just immediately tell that if they follow that program, they're going to be overdoing it. Oftentimes I can. So that could be an indication that you're just overdoing it anyway before you even end up getting these symptoms, which that would be nice if you could identify that by listening to that episode and try and trim the fat and avoid this altogether. But those are all signs. Best of luck. Hopefully some of those help. And yeah, overtraining, very, very common for this particular population, and it's not really going to help you. Your goal is to improve. It's not to train as much as possible. That is the goal. So just keep that in mind. And if you're not improving, then that's probably a sign that you're doing something wrong, whether it's inside the gym or outside the gym.